American patriots gathered on the streets of our nation's capital to celebrate Flag Day, the U.S. military, and our proud American traditions and values. And on the other hand, you had angry, deranged, soy-fed, bitter leftists marching against, well, all of those patriotic things. Pick your America, America. The show starts in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsor. All right, I love this one. The red light face mask from Bond Charge is your go-to solution for radiant, youthful-looking skin, designed to help reduce the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, promote a more even skin tone. It's the perfect way to boost your confidence with a radiant, glowing complexion. I wear mine every single night, 10 minutes a night, right before I go to bed. I'm telling you, the sucker works. Just 10 minutes a day, like I said, cordless, it's effortless, it fits seamlessly into your routine, letting you enjoy your session while going about your day. So make sure you go to bondcharge.com and use the coupon code TOMMY to save 15%. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the show on YouTube at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Without further ado, the show starts now. So, y'all, I was so taken aback at the stark, and I mean stark, contrast between the two big attractions this past weekend. So on the one hand, the United States military parade left us with these scenes of socially normal, seemingly clean and well-mannered American patriots celebrating their country and honoring those who have served and sacrificed for it. And on the other side, you had green-haired, soy-fed, bitter, disgruntled, vampire-looking leftists who take joy in bashing a Trump piñata with their spawn, I mean children. Pick your America, America. I mean, damn, I've never seen a clear choice displayed so black and white in my life. And this No Kings protest, I mean, what the hell? No Kings, really? Did these nutballs think we forgot that it was their party who advocated for locking healthy people indoors for a year plus, forced masking, forced vaccinations, and let's not forget how tyrant, authoritarian Democrat leaders sent out the police and even the Coast Guard to arrest lone paddleboarders and mothers in parks over COVID nonsense. But I can keep going, so I'll add, I don't think there's any greater threat to democracy than allowing millions of foreign nationals to invade a sovereign nation. Or, perhaps shadow bureaucratic creatures taking advantage of a feeble and cognitively deficient president for at least the last 2 years of his administration, and very possibly assuming the role of the chief executive and commander-in-chief while he was, out to lunch. So please, save it and shove it with your No Kings. You wasted poster board, markers, and your time. Last thing, yesterday was Father's Day. So thank you to all the fathers that are serving our country in the United States military, as well as in law enforcement, ICE, DHS, etc. A special note of gratitude to those who spent their Father's Day weekend corralling and holding back psychotic green-haired leftists who hate themselves and hate America. I'm sorry you had to put up with that, and I'm sure it also smelled awful. Joining me now is author and columnist at the Free Press. She is amazing, Batya Unar-Sargon. Batya, I'm so happy to have you. I have been loving your coverage of everything, but you've really been sticking it to the left, pointing out their blatant hypocrisy. I got to get your initial hot take on the No Kings protest.
Thank you so much for having me, Tommy, right back at you. I am such a major, major fan of yours. Our media ecosystem would be so much poorer without your voice. So thank you for everything you do and for your independence, because that is the thing I think I admire most about you. You always say what you think. You don't just toe a party line. And I think that this actually relates to the No Kings point that you were making. It's not just the blatant hypocrisy. It's that once again, as is always the case with the Democrats, every accusation is a confession. They accuse the other side of oligarchy. They are the party of the rich. They accuse Donald Trump of being a king. They are the party that effectively, as you pointed out, held up, propped up a president who could not lead, and then simply axed him without a primary the minute they thought he was a threat to their power. What they cannot stand about Donald Trump is not that he's a king. It's that he is the opposite. He is a near perfect reflection of the will of the American electorate, the American working class, who was abandoned by both parties, abused, disinherited, forgotten, used for the purposes of bolstering the fortunes of the elites for generations by the elites in the political parties of both sides. These people finally found themselves a champion who's not in it for himself, but who, as you pointed out, believes in service and whose entire political agenda and identity was forged by looking for where is the majority of Americans who have been silenced. Because on every single issue, Tomi, whether it's foreign policy or immigration or economic policy, you will find Donald Trump in the consensus position where 60% of Americans are at, who have been abandoned by the elites of both sides. And I think that is the thing they really cannot stand. For so long, the elites, especially on the left, thought that they had the right to dictate policy in this country, and the American people be damned. And what happened now is we see the will of the people being reflected in the policy on immigration, on economics, and on foreign policy. And they cannot stand that once again, the great American middle class and working class is on the rise and is seeing the futures of their children on the ascendancy.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now, the left likes to always tout the numbers that they can get out to these protests. So today, the story is, we got, millions of people across the country to come out for the No Kings protest. But to me, I'm thinking, I know myself, right? There's a lot of things I'm very passionate about. There's not a lot of things that are going to get me out on the street with a sign on a Saturday. There's just not. And it's not that I'm not passionate about those things. I just don't really know what difference it really makes. Now, listen, if you want me to protest in the name of abused senior dogs, I'll probably be out there because I feel like I could do something for the abused senior dogs. But I'm not going to go in the street when Joe Biden was president. I wasn't going to go in the street and say, close the border, because it's what is that going to do? So they like to tout the numbers that they got out at these No Kings protests around the country. But I can't really put my finger on what they exactly changed. And it feels like a lot of the people that they got to show up, whether they're paid or not, I don't know. But the ones that came out, it feels like they're boomers who are reliving their anti-war, anti-Vietnam days. And this woman might be a perfect example of that. She is scared to death of what, I am not sure, but let's take a listen.
No, I'm 74 years old. I worry about everything. And I just am so scared and upset, and I don't understand why people voted for this person.
So, Batya, I'm not an unfeeling and uncaring person. I don't like to see anybody in that state of, complete despair, especially elderly Americans. But I am so confused as to what she is so scared of. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what Trump has done to ruin her life in such a way.
Like you, my heart goes out to somebody suffering in an emotional way, but this is weaponized empathy, which is what the Democrats really specialize in these days. We should open our border and allow in the indigent of the world. Our own working class be damned. Right? I mean, it comes at someone's expense. This woman truly believes that there is a threat here. She probably, if she had been pressed, would have said it's to our, illegal immigrant neighbors. But she doesn't mean our illegal immigrant neighbors. What she really means, and those like her who are weeping on behalf of the illegals, is our illegal immigrant workers. Right? They don't see them as neighbors. They are the workforce of the elites who the Democrats have become convinced they are totally entitled to, a serf cast to undercut the wages of working class Americans and work for a pittance with no benefits and no protections and no job security. I mean, they act like it's about due process. They talk like it's about compassion. It's not. It's about the economic interests of the elites and the rich who have lined their pockets with wages that should have gone to working class Americans, which would have made them middle class. So this is really about economics. I mean, honestly, like you look at a video like that and you do feel, I feel angry at the media who have allowed this woman to become convinced that there is a danger, there is a threat. But the media, the Democratic elites, you know, I don't know this woman's heart, but a lot of the people on the streets there, they have utter contempt for fellow Americans who don't think like them and don't vote like them. They think they should have the right to decide what happens to this country because they have fancy degrees. The class divide in this country is the dividing line. And honestly, they tout their numbers, but if you think about it, that top 10% that the Democrats now, it's their base, these over-credentialed college elites with multiple degrees who are guiding all of this. You know, the top 10%, they control over 60% of the GDP. So they have effectively wage thefted their way into the upper middle classes at the expense of the working class, eviscerating America's middle class. But what do you, I mean, 10% of 350 million is 35 million people. So if they got, 1 million out of that top 10%, we know who we're talking about. And you're right. That's who, if you watch the footage, not of the violent protests, but of the sort of more mass protests, it's sort of upper middle class white progressives. It's the people who are hoarding all of the wealth in this country. And as an alibi for the fact that they are rich at the expense of their neighbors, that it oversaw this immense wage theft of the middle class, they weep and bray and smear the president and smear his supporters as racist and say, if you don't want an open border, you're a racist. You're literally Hitler if you object to the disinheritance of your children in your own country. I think that's really what we saw on display.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that upper class white people can feel oppressed, that they can cosplay oppression. They can be trans, or they can go protest for illegal aliens.
Totally.
That's really it. I mean, that's the lane there. It's like, they have the white guilt. They go in the streets. Oh, I hate Trump. I love my illegal immigrant neighbors. Or it's, I'm transgender. You must worship me. And that's the lane. And I'm noticing it more and more. It's becoming more obvious. I want to talk to you about this, though, because you mentioned being objective. Now, when I saw this clip from our great president last week, I was a little taken aback. And I was like, no, wrong road. But President Trump, at least last week, appeared to soften on some industries that rely on illegal alien cheap labor. I want to play the clip, and I know you'll give me your honest take.
Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. We're going to have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers. And leisure, too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
Batya, I don't love it. Now, listen, again, I have compassion for people who work hard, who just want to support their families. Now, a lot of those people send a lot of the money they make back to their home countries, and I don't like that one itty bitty bit. But I do have compassion for people who just want to work. I get it, right? But we didn't vote for, okay, well, some industries need the cheap labor, so we'll let them have their cheap labor. That's not what I voted for. And I'm hoping that our president is not softening on this. What's your take on, I guess, the answer that he gave there, or the narrative that he was at least compassionate to there?
I'm with you. I really did not like seeing that. I think that's a real betrayal of the base and the messaging and the campaign promising. Do you know the percentage of agricultural workers who are illegal? I pulled this up because it's, from the way both sides talk about it, you would think it was 100%, right? Yeah. It's actually 28%, which means that 70% of that labor is being done by American citizens. By what right do we say, no, we need illegals to do this job that millions of Americans get dignity out of? I just find that to be utterly, utterly appalling. The same thing is true of maids and housekeepers and cleaners. Only 20% of them are illegals. Like, it's so insulting to the base. And moreover, if you say to these people, we're actually going to give them work permits, do you know what's going to happen? The minute they have a legal authorization to work, they are going to be able to demand minimum wage. So immediately the wages in that industry are going to go up anyway, which is what everybody says we could never afford if we got rid of them and put American workers into those jobs. So I'm with you, Tomi. I really did not like seeing that. I really hope that he sort of finds his way out of that position. I don't see why farm workers and hoteliers should somehow have the right to keep employing an indentured serf caste, especially when what we're saying is that is the Democrats' position. And you can see how unpopular it is and how popular the president's immigration approach has been.
Yeah, and he also earlier and his administration gave illegal aliens an out. He said, listen, if you are one of those people who's been here for I don't know how many years and you've managed to skirt the law for that many years, okay, we're going to be fair to you. You can use this app. You can return to your home country. We'll even give you money, which I don't love that part, but we'll even give you money to leave. And then you can come back legally. And I was like, that's a very fair offer. It's like, okay, listen, you did something wrong. You're going to go back and then you're going to get in line and then you can come back. And I thought that was very fair. And he put that out there. Those who chose not to take it and are like, no, we're just going to wait and see if the law finds us. Again, you still broke the law to get into this country. And you are not only, I get it, you're working for a cheaper salary, right? But you're undercutting American workers. And I'm going to talk about this in my final thoughts, but you do such a good job at this. And it really bothers me when I hear over and over again from both sides, Americans won't do these jobs. Americans won't do these jobs. Batya, I come from an agriculture state. I come from a family of ranchers. I don't know one rancher in South Dakota. There might be some, but I don't know one rancher or farmer in South Dakota who relies on illegal aliens to do the job. I know a whole lot of South Dakota ranchers who do the job, who are, legacy ranchers and farmers that do it. And it's hard work and they do it, but they do it because they're either making their own money. They're enriching themselves, and it's not exactly an enriching business, but they're doing it for their livelihood, or, they're working on someone else's ranch and they're making a good wage for it. So when you hear both sides saying Americans won't do the job, what do you say?
When somebody says to you, these are jobs Americans won't do, you have one job, and it's to say, for those wages.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your job. Like, every time someone says it, it's, yes, they won't do them for those wages. And we know that wages have not kept up with productivity. We know that American workers are being stiffed by their bosses, by massive corporations who think that somehow it's okay to make billions of dollars in profit and not share that with the workforce. Like, why are we accepting that that is the case? Things have been made artificially cheap by all of these terrible, terrible trade deals with China. And then this insistence that corporations should be allowed to make billions in profit and employ illegal workers. There are many ways to keep prices down while also paying a living wage. That is the system that we had in the 70s. We just had much less immigration in the 1970s, which was the high watermark for working class wages, not the wages themselves, but the purchasing power of those wages. The percentage of foreign-born people living in the United States was at a record low. It was 4%. Record low immigration means record high working class wages. Somehow everyone was able to afford food. Because when you pay working class people more, they can afford to pay a little more for higher quality products that are made by them, working class people. This was the whole idea behind Fordism and Ford, that workers are consumers. But what we have today is an illegal serf caste doing very cheap, unprotected labor. We have a top 10% that is the only consumer that exists from the point of view of people selling things because no one else has any money. And then we have a struggling working class and a shrinking middle class. This is so totally unacceptable. And it's not the case that there are, as Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy put it, that American workers are too retarded or lazy to compete. That is nonsense that benefits the elites who are very happy with the status quo.
But everything you just said there, I thought that was the liberal worldview. Because for decades, and I know that you don't come from a conservative background, so it makes sense, right? But I don't know where along the way, and I know that they're manipulated by the media and the Democrat narrative. I totally get that, and I think that's the answer. But where along the way did folks maybe like you with a more liberal background, where along the way did they miss that point? Where did they jump off the train? Because exactly what you're saying is there's people that are very, very wealthy. They're relying on illegal aliens to do basically slave labor for slave labor prices. And they're pushing out the middle class who would love to have those jobs for a decent wage and be able to support their family. I thought that was the bedrock of the whole liberal idea. You got to pay. I thought that's what Bernie wanted. The billionaires are bad. So
Right.
I don't think billionaires are bad, but you're making a point. Like, the middle class should have these jobs for a higher wage, and then that would jumpstart the economy. Also, they hate the tariffs, and President Trump is like, listen, American workers, we're going to benefit American industry. We're going to reshore American jobs. Americans can do this. We don't need cheap Chinese lead-filled crap. We can do it here. I thought that was a leftist position. Please tell me where they abandoned that. At what point did MSNBC just brain rot them to the point where their own values and principles went so far out the window?
It's a great question, and it is the question to be asking right now, because we have seen a political realignment. So it used to be that the Republicans were the party of the rich and the country clubs and trickle-down economics and the Chamber of Commerce, open trade with China and all of this, and the Democrats represented labor. Today, the GOP under Trump is the working class party that represents the economic interests of the working class, this protectionist policy like tariffs and like immigration controls. And meanwhile, it's the Democrats who are sort of pro-China, pro-rich, pro-corporation, which is why I really think that in the big, beautiful bill, they should raise taxes on the top income bracket from 37% to 39%. Rich people will not feel that, but what a troll, forcing every Democratic senator to vote against a bill that raises taxes on the rich. And they will vote against it if Donald Trump pushes it. So I totally, fully support that. Your question is a great one. When did that shift? It shifted when the Democrats stopped representing the working class and started representing the elites and the rich and the educated. For example, NAFTA. Bill Clinton signed NAFTA into law, which was a huge betrayal of the working class, but put money in the pockets of a consumer class who work in the knowledge industry. They don't work in factories. So they're getting cheap consumer goods from China, and they don't care that their working class neighbors are no longer employed. President Barack Obama defunded vocational training, which used to be an amazing avenue for working class boys, especially, to get into the middle class. Well, his view was, no, everyone's going to go to college because, of course, college makes people Democrats, right? They had this view that, you get everybody onto this knowledge industry track, you funnel them through universities, and they'll come out, Democrats in good standing, and the Democrats will never have to compete again. So they basically had this view. They went from representing labor to effectively destroying labor, shipping labor overseas to China and Mexico to build up their middle class, importing a slave caste here to do the remaining service industry jobs, and then opening the border to slash any, hope that the working class had left. And it's because they decided, labor is not for us anymore. We're going to cater to the college educated elites. And the reason for that is because the working class started to see them going a little kooky on these cultural issues. And so started, slowly migrating towards the right. And then that economic piece of it followed along. And I think this is a really important thing to remember. You look at somebody like Donald Trump, he realized that sort of platform that had gotten the Democrats working class support for 100 years, they had just abandoned it. It was just there for the taking, this anti-war protectionist on the economy. And then he did something that I'm sure you've noticed, Tomi, because you're also an independent thinker. The Reagan agenda was sort of pro-war, getting involved everywhere. It was free trade. Let's, ship manufacturing wherever it could go, open, those trade routes. And it was socially conservative. Donald Trump is not a social conservative. He's a social moderate. And so he realized, most working class people, for example, on abortion, if you ask them, well, what's your view on abortion? What they'll say is, I am pro-life. I would never get an abortion because I think it's murder, but I would not judge that woman's decision. I don't like the idea of it being banned, like that kind of like, safe, legal, and maybe rare, like first 6 weeks, first 12 weeks, like, let's have sort of a tolerant view. And then after that, let's make sure that murder doesn't start to happen when it kicks in. Like that very nuanced view, that's Trump's view. That's how most Americans see things, certainly most working class people. He really understood that. He understood that they were very anti-trans. But a lot of people have a gay person in their life who they want treated with dignity and respect, and who they maybe even hope will get married. So if you look at what Trump did to the 2024 GOP agenda, for 40 years, it had language in it that was pro-life and anti-gay marriage. And Trump was like, no, that's really going to turn people off. He took that out of the platform. And as a result, he got millions of people who had never voted for a Republican in their lives to vote for him. So he really transformed the party to look like the people. Again, coming back to this theme of the kings, the opposite of a king.
You're right. And unfortunately, there were a lot of conservatives who tried to pull him back into that. And he had to resist it. And I would argue that the biggest battle that he had, and that Republicans had, at least in the last round of midterms, was that very issue. It was the socially conservative issue. It turns out, whether it's socially liberal or socially very conservative, the majority of people don't exist on either sides of those, and they just want to make money. Money is the unifying thing. If both sides would put their ideological stuff where it belongs, in their churches or in their, I don't know, what the leftists, what they worship, or the rainbow, okay? Keep it in the church, keep it in the rainbow. Don't put it in the middle, because that's where people don't want to talk about that. They just want to make money. Other big news of the day, and I love your analysis on all of this, but I've got to get your take on what's going on with Israel and Iran right now. I mean, things are changing by the moment. Now, I'll give you my view on it. I don't want to be pulled into a war, and I don't think Trump does either. He's very like, no, I don't. I want peace, right? But I think Israel should just go for it. I think if they got the opportunity, wipe it out, right? Because I don't think that unless Iran's capabilities are completely wiped out, I don't think they're ever going to stop. And we're just going to have to keep doing this and doing this and doing this till the end of time. I think they need to be so debilitated with their program that they are not able to rebuild it for at least another decade. Now, what's your take on everything? And where's the left going to line up on this one? Are we going to see the Mexican flag and, the Iranian flag next to the Hamas flag? Like, is that where we're headed?
So this issue is being very misunderstood. What you just said, I think, is the correct take and the one that reflects where most Americans are at, but it's being really misunderstood. I do have to give a little bit of credit to the left. I have not seen anybody coming to the defense of Greta Thunberg, and I have not seen any Iranian flags so far. So, it's rare that they make the right move. But so far, I think that's, I got to give them credit for that. Here's where I think things have been misunderstood. A lot of people are seeing this moment as, the breaking apart of the MAGA coalition, that there's the sort of, the neocon right who's pushing Trump to go to war, who's pro-Israel. And then you have the MAGA right, which is anti-Israel, which is telling Trump, we have to drop Israel, abandon our ally. This war is not for us. We don't want to go to war. But Tomi, you put it exactly perfectly. The real position of the America First MAGA movement, as far as I can tell, is it is both pro-Israel and anti-war. So we support our ally. We understand that our ally has its interests, its strategic interests, its needs, but we are not going to war for anybody but ourselves. That is the America First position. That is Donald Trump's position. We love Israel. It brings a lot to the table. Our interests are frequently aligned with Israel, but they are not identical. And so we have to be very careful here. So far, what Trump has done, I think, has been perfect. He has lent defensive support to Israel to protect its civilians, but he has declined to actively participate in the war in an offensive way and has used Netanyahu as the bad cop to Trump's good cop to say to the Iranians, I am still open for that deal. You can never have a nuclear weapon. That would hurt American citizens. But if you want to make a deal, I can stop this right now and we will sit down and make that deal as soon as you are ready. It is absolute brilliant peace through strength Trump doctrine. No one else could have done this, could have walked that narrow path between the people on the far, far right saying, drop Israel, this is none of our business, leave them, and the people kind of more on the neocon side saying, we've got to go into this, we've got to go full throttle, we got to bring the bunker busters and bomb Fotoro ourselves. Trump said no to both of those. He said, what we're going to do is we're going to lend support to our ally who is a sovereign nation, which has its own interests, which align in some ways here to a point. But the minute the Iranians tell Trump, we are willing to sit down and make a deal that involves no nuclear weapon, Trump is going to want that. And then there will be tension with the Israelis because they will want to keep going. And I think Trump will say to them, no. We told them we want a deal and we want a deal. Peace through strength. Trump absolutely hates war. It's one of his most fundamental beliefs. He cannot stand to see needless bloodshed. So I think your take was completely right. And I think everybody else is misreading this.
You're right. There's one man who can call off the dogs, and that's President Trump. And there's reporting today that Iran is like, please, someone ask Trump to make them stop. I think Israel is so sophisticated, and I completely supporting them in their endeavor. I don't think the United States gets involved unless they touch a hair on an American's head.
100%.
And then game is on, and they well know that. I think President Trump has made it clear. I want to play this clip just because I think it's so hilarious. CNN's Dana Bash had a conversation with President Trump on this, talking about the negotiations with Iran and all this. And of course, our president never misses a moment to be both a leader and a comedian. Let's take a listen.
He said, the people I was dealing with are dead, the hardliners, to which I just wanted to underscore. So what you're saying is Israel has now killed the people who you were dealing with. And he said very sarcastically, they didn't die of the flu. They didn't die of COVID.
Yeah, I think he put it pretty perfectly there. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. What do you think, in just wrapping this up, what do you think the next week is going to look like in both Iran and in Israel?
I know, you could just totally hear him say, well, they didn't die of COVID.
Yeah.
He's so funny. Listen, I read the same report you did in the Wall Street Journal. I hope it's accurate that the Iranians are desperately begging back channels to de-escalate both with Israel and with President Trump. I think Putin would be a very good person to bring this to an end. He has an affinity for Israel. There are 1 million Russian Jews living in Israel who he has always continued to see as Russian nationals. And they historically have had good relations, which have been a little bit worse since Russia was sidelined by the West due to its aggressive war in Ukraine. But, there are the fact that Putin called Trump and that he then took the message back to the Ayatollah. It was reported saying, guys, you're alone on this, right? They're not going to stop. So you should really come out of this. It just all seems to be aligning. The president has effectively taken what had been a new axis of evil, China, Iran, Russia, and slowly teased it apart and disentangled them and given each one the message, I've got something to offer you if you want to come back to the West. I've got something to offer you if you want to play ball for us. So I really do think, I hope this is not Pollyannish. I mean, I pray and I hope and I think he will be able to bring an end to this very soon. Of course, I mean, the Israelis did an amazing job of absolutely just destroying the Iranians' military capability. It's truly impressive. I really hope that this comes to an end very soon. And I think it's possible that it could be, coming to an end very quickly.
Last quick point I wanted to ask you about. There's also reporting that Israel wanted to take out the supreme leader, and President Trump said, hold off, don't do that. Now, some people might be a little perplexed by that. Like, listen, if you can get him, get him. If Israel's got it, in the crosshairs, do it. But I think this is also part of the negotiation. Like, hey, buddy, I saved your ass. So come to the table because I might not save your ass next time. That's what I envision being the thought process there. But do you think that was a smart move?
I think it was a very smart move. I agree with you. I think there was a lot of messaging thought put behind that. But also, Tulsi Gabbard once said something really smart. She said, when it comes to terrorists, I am a hawk. And when it comes to counterproductive wars of regime change, I am a dove. Regime change is extremely messy and extremely expensive. And I think there's a part of President Trump that thinks, part of my promise to the American people was we were not going to be involved in that and engaged in that. And if he can get a great deal out of the Iranians, that would be so much better. Now, there's nothing to say that we can't come right back to where we are right now in 6 months or a year, God forbid, if it doesn't work out. But he has a very clear idea of what to him are the red lines. There's no way we're going to enter a JCPOA situation that does not benefit the American people. So I have a lot of hope. I think it was a really smart move on his point.
Yeah. Oh, there's just so much to get to. You're the perfect person. Thank you so much for being here, for breaking it all down. I always really appreciate your commentary. You're so, you're so wise in it, and you're so independent and unapologetic. And I love that. So thank you so much. Please come back soon, and I will be following you until that day.
Thank you so much. God bless you, Tomi. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. All right, folks, as we've just been talking about, Democrats are back on their BS, advocating for illegal alien cheap labor and calling it compassion. Well, I have some final thoughts.
If the raids hadn't happened, then that protest would have been a no kings protest. We know that that was planned months in advance. But the disruption and the fear that has been caused by the raids has really had a devastating effect and has been a body blow to our economy. I don't think the president understands that we have entire sectors of our economy that cannot function without immigrant labor.
And there you have it, folks. This is not about compassion for illegal immigrants. This is about votes, census padding, and cheap labor. Fun fact, not only is California home to the largest population of illegal immigrants, LA has at least 800,000, likely many more. And moreover, over 1 million LA residents live with someone who is here illegally. According to a 2020 study by USC Dornsife, about 11% of LA's workforce is undocumented. So when Mayor Karen Bass cries about ending the raids, what she means is, don't take away my cheap labor. It's exploitive, really, when you think about it. But this isn't just a California thing. Much of American industry is addicted to cheap illegal alien labor. Be prepared to read more sob stories like this one of companies whining without undercutting American workers for cheaper illegal alien workers. They just cannot function. Well, perhaps you should have considered that when you hired illegal alien workers in the first place, which is also illegal. And I don't buy the BS that Americans won't do the work or Americans have no interest in those industries or that kind of hard, manual, dirty, or backbreaking labor. I come from a state that's full of those Americans, and yes, it's in farming and ranching. Americans will do the work for a fair wage. No, they will not do the work for slave labor prices, but they'll do it better. And here's the best part. They'll do it legally. These companies who rely on illegal immigrants want us to feel sorry for them if their cheap illegal alien labor is taken away, but sorry, no. Do not expect the American people to play Russian roulette with our lives and our families' lives with unvetted and undocumented cheap illegal alien laborers so you can cut your payroll costs. There was a time in this country that Americans did that work, and during that time, those American workers who did those jobs, well, they could afford a decent middle-class life. That was until the illegals came in and started doing cut-rate work for cut-rate prices, and greedy businesses took advantage. My friend and colleague Joey Jones put it best on The Five last week. Take a listen.
People like you think that immigration is a victimless crime. You truly believe that, or you think it's a net positive, illegal immigration. I come from a border city that is full of illegal immigrants, so much so that our Mexican restaurants have been closed down for a week and a half because ICE is there, invited, Come on in, help us out a little bit. We have problems. But this idea that illegal immigration is somehow victimless, if it's a victimless crime, and I'm not saying that everyone committing the crime is a bad person. The empathy isn't not there. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. If it's a victimless crime, then my nieces don't have to change schools because there aren't enough English speakers in their class to get through a lesson in Dalton, Georgia. If it's a victimless crime, then you don't have a situation where you can't use the health department because it's overran with illegal immigrants. If it's a victimless crime, you don't have a situation where every major function in your municipality is overran by illegal immigrants who have been educated and understand what they can come here and get, not what they can come here and do. And this idea about cheap labor, let me tell you what cheap labor did. My dad used to lay brick at $600 a thousand with a four-man crew, get it done well, and once it was done perfectly. Mexicans come across the border, they'll lay it for $300 a thousand. 20 people show up, they do it quick, fast, in a hurry, and then it falls over at the end of winter because they didn't do it right. Not because they're bad people, but because they learned to do it with the materials they had. That's the victims of cheap labor, of illegal immigration, of doing things the wrong way. The administration says self-deport will put you first in line to get back here. Democrats say, well, there isn't a line to get back here. Well, why the hell isn't there a line to get back here? Maybe because when Trump handed Nancy Pelosi DACA and visa reform and other things in exchange for the wall, she couldn't let him have that policy win in his first term. That's the problem. The partisan politics is the problem. That senator from California, who the real insult is nobody knows who the hell he is, he's showing up like that today. That is the problem. That gets nothing done. I'm a big fan of normalizing treating elected officials in power like regular people, and that's exactly what they would have done to someone else.
Perfectly said, my friend. Illegal immigration, even when it's not violent, is not a victimless crime. And I hope to goodness President Trump doesn't soften on this. It's time to get America back, and we aren't going to do it relying on cheap, illegal alien labor, period. And those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes on OutKick and Fox Nation. Please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless. Take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.